Welcome to the DIS MIB Browser tutorial. I am Giel Olda, and I will be your guide to dive into the ins and outs of the DIS MIB Browser exercise. Let's get started. Let's start by gathering the materials needed for this exercise. Let's go to GitHub. On-site GitHub, you will find the Skyline Communications organization, so you can just search for that. And inside the Skyline Communications organization, you can see, hey, you have a tutorials DIS MIB Browser repository. You'll find plenty other repositories there, but this one is the one that will be used for this exercise. When you look at this repository, you will see, hey, this is a connector solution if you don't recognize it yet. And inside the documentation folder is a MIB file that we'll be using for this exercise. Now, how to get this information locally on your PC? You have here the code button where you can say, hey, download zip. This will download the zip. You can extract that one. And when you have extracted that one in your file explorer, you can find it here. You will see those are the same files that you have from the GitHub repository. You can open the SLN file, the Visual Studio solution file, which will then open Visual Studio with everything loaded up. Make sure you have Visual Studio and DS installed because those are also necessary for this exercise. Once Visual Studio is started up, let's open up the MIB browser itself. For this, go to the Extensions tab. Inside the extensions, you will find DIS. Inside DIS, we will find tool windows, and in tool windows, we will find eventually the DIS MIB browser. This is the one that we will be using during this exercise. So you can click on it. It will open up a new tool window. If you never have opened it before, it will open up as a standalone tool window. You can drag and drop it to position it where you want. For now, I will put it at the right for my own convenience. By default, you will see here now the MIB3. This shows all the parameters from all the MIB files that are actually loaded inside the DIS MIB browser. Some of them are always default there, for example, the system parameters. These we won't use today. Today we will want to use our own MIB file that we have prepared for you. To add this one, head to the Files tab. You will see here a list of all the loaded modules, the loaded MIB files. To add our own, click the Add button. Inside the Add, it will show up actually a file dialog. Head to the place where you put the solution. Inside the documentation folder, you will find, hey, we have here a MIB file. You can double click on this one or select it and press open. You will see it will be added to the table. This is not loaded in yet because you can also add other files from different locations and etc. Once you're satisfied with everything that you have positioned here, you can press the load files. Now you can see, hey, it's loaded up inside the loaded modules. If any error would happen during the load file stage, this would be showing a warning at the top as well to say like, hey, there's a certain MIB file that is still missing because it has a dependency on it. Once you're ready with loading up the file, you can head back to the MIB3. Inside the MIB3, we'll find now, hey, under the enterprises, we have now a new section. We have the MIB browser MIB, which contains a few parameters, which we'll be using later on in this exercise. Now that we have loaded up our MIB file, let's have a closer look at the MIB browser and see more about the details that we can see. So when you have selected a folder, for example, you can see here some basic information at the bottom. It says from where it comes from which module or which MIB it specifically, what the OID is, which you can also see here in the tree view itself, and then also the name. In our case, we also can select now a parameter, for example, the CPU loads. So if you hover over it, it already shows the description, which you can also find here at the bottom, the current CPU load and percentage. In addition to that, you have the name, the OID, and the MIB, where it's located as before with the folder. You also see like, hey, this specific parameter will be an integer with a value between 0 and 100. Also, this has a unit which is a percentage, and the access is actually read-only. So we cannot write that parameter, can only read it in. So we can only pull that information. To use this parameter, you can either just type in the parameter fully yourself, copy over all the information, or you can make use of the neat feature of the DIS MIB browser itself. So make sure you just leave some space. You select the CPU loads. You drag and drop this one over here. I see where you can put it, you release it, and it will actually fully generate that parameter. The only thing we have to do is give it an ID. So in this case, I will give it the ID 3. As you can see, some parts are yellow. So this is a snippet. So we are kind of in snippet mode. And you can use the tab key to quickly jump around all the yellow parts. So this makes it a lot easier. For example, the description, CPU load, generally write it CPU load with capital casing. And if you say, hey, this is all right for me, you can press escape and you will go out of snippet mode. And you can still move around the parameters, the tags, however you see fit. But now we can see, hey, this is already fully generated with all the information located here at the bottom. You can see we have our unit filled in, we have our range. You can see it's a number, it's a raw type and type, and also description as part of the subtext. So when you hover over a parameter inside Cube, you will see the same information that we see as in the MIB browser. Next up is the bulk generation. Because we can only select always one parameter at a time, this is not very convenient for having multiple or bigger MIB files where you have like 50 parameters or 100 or more. You don't want to do that one by one. So for that, we have our bulk generation tool. To use this, again, inside the parameters tag, make sure you have some space. This time, right click on that empty space and you have the option generate parameters. When you click on that one, it will open up a generate parameters wizard. By default, we have the MIB type selected. This will use the MIB files that are loaded in the DIS MIB browser. You have other types, which we will not cover today, but this is the general bulk generation tool that we have. When you click next, you will see, hey, we have here the same thing that we see also in our MIB tree. So this is the same representation with the difference that we now have checkboxes to multi-select several items. We already generated the CPU load, so we don't need to cover that one. Let's select the system age, the module name, leave the module type B, we will use that later on, and then the log table. A table consists of multiple columns. So when you open that one, the log table, you will see we have the log table entry, and then the index, description, age, and delete. So those are 4 columns. If you select the table at the top level, it will automatically select all the columns. If you want, you still can disable one of the columns to not be generated. In our case, we will just generate all the columns. More often, we will always use everything. Once you're ready with that, you will go to the next screen, which will ask you to specify a parameter ID. So it will generate all the parameters one after each other, so it all needs to have an ID because you don't want to manually assign them. So you start off, for example, with 1000. So the first parameter will be 1000, the second 1002, the third 1003, and so on and so on. If you have like tables, it will jump per 1000. So then this table will have parameter 2000. This is to make sure you have enough space between the columns and the single parameters as well. If you have a write parameter, so if you have read-write axis, it will use an offset between the read and the write parameter, so that there is less chance of overlapping with other IDs. So in my case, I will leave it be on 1000 and 100. If you click next, you will see, hey, this is a list of everything that will be generated. So you have our system age, which with the parameter ID 1000, the module name with 1001, and also you see here, there's a little arrow, which shows, hey, there's again a module name. So you would say, hey, 2 times the same one. Not really. This one is the read parameter, and this one will be the write parameter. So you can see the offset 1101 is being used here. So it will be 2 parameters, the read and the write together. And then as well, we have the log table with each of its columns. Once you're ready with that, you can click finish. And then you can see, hey, all the parameters are now being generated with all the information, as you can see already inside the parameters, same as if you would do drag and drop of a single parameter. But now with a few clicks extra, now we generated 10, 50, 100 parameters. So this makes life a lot easier. Of course, make sure you go through it yourself to double check if everything is all right. As you can see, the table is here as well. So now we have actually properly generated bulk parameters. The last step is actually using the compare feature. So inside the tool window for the DIS MIB browser, we already used the MIB tree, we have already used the files, and now let's use the compare. So by default, the compare is empty because we haven't done yet. The compare will compare what's already inside the connector and what's in the MIB files and see if there's any differences in between. So the top one will show, hey, this is everything that is not inside the connector itself. And the top one will, the top list will actually showcase everything that's already in the connector, but not in the MIB file. So this could be parameters that got removed with a new firmware version of the device. So once you have everything set up, you just click refresh and it will show all the lists. So previously we left out the module type by design. So you can see this one here now in the compare view. Remember the first part of the exercise where you can drag and drop a parameter from the MIB tree? Well, this is also possible from the compare view. This is very useful if you only have like a few parameters difference. You can just drag and drop this parameter module type. Let's put it over here. Just release it where you have everything ready. You just need to fill in an ID, and the previous one for the module name was 1001, so let's fill in 1002. You can just press again escape to go out of the snippet mode, and now you have already the module type generated. So if you click refresh again, we'll see, hey, now it's not there anymore. We still have the index column of the table, but this is by design due to the way how tables are designed inside the connector, where there is no need for the OID on the first column. We have reached the end of the exercise. There's only one thing left to do, and that is to inform us that you have completed the exercise. You can do this by sending a mail to DataMiner, to data acquisition, more precisely, which is domain.create.data-acquisition@skyline.be. As its subject, you just specify, hey, the tutorial, then for which specific tutorial, so the tutorial in this case is the DIS MIB Browser. You attach the protocol XML, so that's the only thing that we currently need. So you can find this in the solution folder itself. And then in the body, make sure you specify your profile in case, especially if you have a different email address, so it's a lot easier to find it back who you are. And if you have any other feedback about this exercise, feel free to also mention this in the mail. So if you send this mail now to us, we will be able to review what you did. And if everything is all right, then we will award you your DevOps points. Thank you for using DIS, and thank you for doing the exercise.